The whole point was scaring, sort of abusing the audience. Jaws, scaring, frightening us. This thing is sort of, what's mysterious is unknown, and we love it, rather than running from that shark or running from the devil.
There's a reason Close Encounters of the Third Kind still feels otherworldly nearly 5 decades later. But what if we told you the real story behind the film is even stranger than fiction? From the cast's offbeat experiences to production decisions that baffled even Hollywood insiders, what happened behind the scenes is rarely discussed and even more rarely understood. Why does this movie feel so unlike all the other Alien films? What really happened when it was made? Bear with us. We're unveiling the layers of a film mystery that broke every rule. Steven Spielberg's first pitch, the spiritual movie Hollywood, tried to bury for a movie that would go on to redefine science fiction. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was ushered in with one of the most unfriendly starts possible. Before the cameras began rolling, before a single frame was taken, Steven Spielberg's intensely personal vision was already on the verge of falling apart. The notion of depicting aliens as peaceful, wise beings was almost blasphemous in 1970s Hollywood, a world that lived on terror, devastation, and Cold War hysteria. Every major studio rejected the project several times. Spielberg's presentation, centered on awe and communion instead of chaos and bloodshed, was too foreign for executives to comprehend. The science fiction mode was at that time securely tied to tried and true formulas. Either Earth was invaded, or humanity was discovering monstrous danger in space. The studio heads couldn't care less about a peaceful, mystical meeting of species. Spielberg wasn't selling War of the Worlds. He was selling something more akin to 2001. Studio demands a space odyssey, but with emotional appeal and regular people. It was a risk that few were willing to take. Even when Columbia Pictures finally agreed to fund the film, they did so begrudgingly, and only because Spielberg had just given them a monster hit with Jaws. His reputation, rather than the idea, got the green light. Off the record, the tension between Spielberg's vision and the demands of the studio never dissipated. Richard Dreyfuss, the actor who played Roy Neary, would recall how the studio bosses simply could not comprehend the plot. They kept asking, "Where's the explosion? Where's the enemy?" He remembered. What they were looking for was spectacle. Aliens descending, cities in flames, mankind on the edge. What Spielberg produced for them instead was a profoundly contemplative, near-spiritual pilgrimage toward grasping something greater than human understanding. The heart of the tale wasn't conflict, but bond. To most executives, this wasn't science fiction, it was fiscal catastrophe. Rewrites Terry Garr, the actress who played Ronnie Neary, said the script was in a state of flux due to studio meddling. The early versions were heavy on invasion cliches, with aggressive alien armies and more conventional action set pieces. But Spielberg resisted. He rewrote the script several times to excise those elements and reorient the story around awe, curiosity, and emotional metamorphosis. The rewrites weren't cosmetic, they were ideological. Spielberg was fighting the Hollywood machine at every turn, attempting to preserve a message he held dear. That interaction with the unknown didn't have to be frightening. It could be transcendent. Melinda Dillon, who played Gillian Guyler, recalled how the studio's concern only intensified after the budget came into focus. The movie had heavy special effects, location filming, and enormous sets, all for a tale that did not provide the typical genre excitement. There were no laser battles, no alien overlords, just light and music and emotion, she told us. The lack of traditional conflict meant that executives didn't have anything familiar to hold on to, and that made them uncomfortable. Columbia Pictures, which was struggling financially to begin with, was gambling huge on a film they hardly comprehended. Yet Spielberg's confidence in the story never wavered. He trusted the audience was prepared for something more profound, something that resonated with our desire for meaning beyond ourselves. It was a tale of change, not fear, connection, not domination. And even with the forces piling against him, he would not give up on that dream. Nonetheless, the epiphany wasn't created in Hollywood boardrooms. It was generated from the earth, namely, from a holy mountain that Spielberg felt had the power to speak for humanity itself. And though studios attempted to dumb it down, Spielberg did something that would make the movie cinematic legend by picking a location nobody saw coming. Devil's Tower. More than just a backdrop in a movie full of amazing decisions, Devil's Tower, the choice of Devil's Tower as the site for Alien Landing, may be Spielberg's strongest decision. To the naked eye, it was merely a stunning natural monument, a singular bit of geology pushing up out of the Wyoming plains. But to Spielberg, it was something more than landscape. It was a spiritual icon. He specifically selected the site not simply for spectacle, but due to its mythological and cultural significance. Native American people, especially the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Kiowa, have regarded the location as sacred for centuries. In their folklore, the tower is a symbol of divine intervention, communication with the other side, and contact between worlds. For a tale of breaking through human limitations, there could be no more appropriate location. Richard Dreyfuss, who played the psychologically disintegrating Roy Neary, recalled his initial experience standing in front of the tower as life-changing. "You stood under it and thought that aliens could come here," he explained. "It did not feel like something out of a movie. It felt like the Earth itself was involved in the narrative." That sense of natural wonder, the sense of being humbled by something ancient and significant, allowed Dreyfuss to tap into the emotional reserves his character demanded. He was not merely dreaming up first contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. He was having a genuine encounter with the unknown. The tower served as a portal for that sense. Melinda Dillon seconded that opinion, labeling the experience spiritually grounding. She didn't experience the shoot like a typical film production. She experienced it like a pilgrimage. "It felt like shooting at a cathedral constructed by the earth," she said afterwards. The location didn't merely accommodate the story, it defined it. It influenced the way the actors moved about, the way they spoke their lines, and the way they absorbed the high stakes of the third act. All cast and crew had the sense they were somewhere important. The wind, the height, the remoteness, it all added up to the sense they were poised at the edge of something gigantic. Native mythology hung over production, although it was never directly invoked in the script. The tower's long history of being a sacred place worked its way into the very fabric of the movie. The whole movie is about crosstalk between worlds, and Devil's Tower had always stood for that link. Spielberg never used the location as just a backdrop. It became a part of the story, a silent, unmoving observer to man's leap of understanding towards the universe. To situate the pivotal scene in a place of such spiritual and cultural importance only served to enhance the film's message further. It was not merely about men and aliens. It was more humanity encountering the divine, the unknown, the future. So the mothership's descent and the tower's illumination by divine light were not just cinematic, but also somewhere of ritual importance. This placement of the divine light on the tower, in a manner rather like that of rite, seems to be an overdue convergence of the earthly and the cosmic. Francois Truffaut, who plays gentle and observant scientist Claude Lacombe, observed that the location determined the tone for the entire production. The very marriage of myth and science, an arena where the metaphysical and the technological could cohabit without contradiction. To Truffaut, the tower was hope and not fear of the unknown. Hope that intelligence and beauty lay beyond our sky. Hope that some link might be established, even if across galaxies. And by this point, that link was tangible, and not because of some show-off special effects or clenched script twist, but simply because of where it occurred. Devil's Tower was more than a site. It was a declaration. A sacred site for a sacred tale. But that was not the only sense of cosmic awe. It reached also to a spaceship that viewers and the cast had never